Hey, it's Asriel Lawless. And once again, you've taken the elevator straight into Hellavella and found yourself another Lawless interview. I'm here today with romance writer Lori Beth Johnson, and we're going to talk about her work out on Kindle Vella. How you doing, Lori?
I'm doing great. How are you this morning?
I'm awesome. Thank you so much. I am going to give you the standard Hellavella shtick. If you are ready, we will get going. There is one question I ask every writer that I talk to on this show, and anyone who watches the show knows the first question. It's a tough one for a lot of us because, well, the answer can wildly vary. So when did you get started as a writer? When did you start writing, like writing a cohesive story, not like being able to like write your name, but
Right, absolutely. Well, I wrote some really horrible ones in high school, which was quite a long time ago at this point. And my friends and I would write stories and give them to each other. And that was probably the first time that I really wrote, but that was not really structured, and it was just sort of putting little stories down and little plot lines, and had no idea what I was doing. Into my 20s, and when I was going to college and getting married and having children, I didn't write a lot. I got kind of back into it in my 30s. You know, as a lot of writers probably say, stories are always in my head. I always have stories going, whether they're the stories I'm writing or other stories. They're just always there,
Yeah,
and I decided I just wanted to get them out. I dabbled in some fan fiction, which I think is also kind of common for some people in the last 20 years or so. But that got me kind of used to episodic writing. And that got me used to having some readers that really actually are friends of mine now 20 years later that have kind of stuck with me. And then around probably about 10 years ago, I started trying to get a little more serious. And that's when I was first published by a small press. Those books are no longer in publication. But that's when I've really, in the last 10 years is really when I've gotten serious, if that makes sense, and just have so many works of progress out there like everybody else.
2011, 2012-ish.
About 2012. It's like it was published in 2013.
Yeah, so and then those were romance novels, or that was a romance?
They were. One was a football player romance, an athlete. And then there was a small short that was sort of, just a romance. I actually was also published, and I just thought of this. I am in an anthology out there that was published for Women's History Month in 2013. Ooh. Her story. I always forget that one because it's just kind of out there, but I do have a short story in that one.
Oh, I'd be very proud of that.
Yeah, very proud of it. It was an independent one, and it's one of those that you've probably I probably made $1 on in 10 years, but it celebrates strong women, and it's out there, and I love that it is. Yeah, I even make sure my local library had it.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody who's ever put anything in an anthology ever got much money out of it.
I don't think
that's why we put things in anthology.
I don't think so. It was a fun project to work on.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. That's great. And so that brings me to the next question, because that one was very well answered, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when did you hear about Kindle Vella, and how did you hear about Kindle Vella?
I heard about it fairly early on. I heard about it early last spring. I think it was maybe April when it launched sometime in 2021. Actually, a friend of mine, and I cannot remember which one it was, but messaged me or texted me and said, have you seen this? I think that your writing would be great for this platform. So I kind of looked into it last spring. My mom, who's 90, was going through some health issues. She had a stroke and, some health issues. So I wasn't really able to delve into it, but by the end of the summer, I was on board. So that's kind of how I heard about it. And the minute my friend told me, I was just like reading about it. And at first I thought it was too good to be true, because I'm like, wait a minute, all you do is upload it and you have the possibility of readers and making money, maybe. You know, you don't have to go through all of these hoops. You don't have to do the formatting and you know, all those different things, and that do come along with independent publishing that I will be getting to later, but that have always kind of scared me. And I thought, wow, this is just kind of write it and you know, do your editing or whatever, but then just pop it right up there. So it's like, wow, this really is kind of what I want to do.
So then you found out about it and you looked into it, and then what did you decide? Well, what'd you upload first? And
I uploaded Heartstrings, and the very, very end of August is when I went live with Heartstrings. Probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 episodes at once, I think, is what I put out when I very first started. And that's, I mean, I love all my stories. You know, we love all our stories. We love all our characters. This one is just really close to my heart and heartstrings. And I wanted just to get it out first. So that's what I've done with it. And it's, yeah. So I started that at the end of August.
Heartstrings, end of August. Stuck it on up there. So here comes September. You probably didn't have many reads in August if you stuck it up really last of August.
Very, very few.
Right. But you still got some money out of it, which was probably a shocker.
Enough for lunch, enough to buy a lunch. I sure did.
Which, you know, come on, man.
Which is almost more than I'd ever made, you know, in almost anything else.
Yeah, for a whole book.
For exactly.
So, you know, hey, Kindle Vella, that's the way to go. So then, September, you got you a full month of looky-loo. And then here comes, because back then they were pretty much announcing the bonus on point right on the 15th back then. And so here comes October 15th. You found out what you made, right?
I was shocked. I was shocked. Yeah. I mean,
enough for a car payment?
Definitely enough for a car payment. Definitely enough for a car payment. And I was just like, wow. And you know, I work in education, so my day job doesn't necessarily pay a whole lot. And I thought, my gosh, this is like America. This is like, I know, this is like a fraction of what I make at I mean, this is like, it certainly isn't enough to quit right now, but it's a little chunk. And I'm like, wow. And very impressed, very happy with that, for sure. Sure.
Yeah. So then you're like, what? You're like, this is a way to write and get paid. You know, so you put some more stories up there, didn't you?
I sure did.
What was next?
You know, now I'm trying to remember which one was next. I'm pretty sure I put Deer Creek up next. So Deer Creek and Heartstrings are both written. I mean, romance is definitely the heart of them, but they are both written sort of like a drama. I really hate to say the word soap opera because there are a lot of people that have bad connotations with soap operas, but I say take out the stuff you don't like, and that's what's left over. And that's kind of what these are. There's lots of interwoven storylines, multi-generational stuff going on. So that's kind of why I did Deer Creek next. And then it was approaching Christmas. And I had this story that was about 3/4 of the way done at that point. The Joy of Christmas, and it's a time travel Christmas story that takes place in the Nashville area and Tennessee. Actually, Heartstrings takes place in Nashville as well. But so I started it at Christmas. I'm sorry? Is
that where you are?
I'm in southern Indiana, but I'm only a couple of hours from Nashville.
Really?
So all of my stories are either in Indiana, Illinois, or kind of the Tennessee, Kentucky area, because it's what I know. And for now, you know, I kind of stick these stories in here in the heart of the Midwest and the upper South. And this is where, you know, I set everything. So
yeah.
so I had to put the Christmas one a little bit on hiatus. I actually had shingles, yay, in December. Yeah, it was awful. It was like 6 to 7 weeks until I really felt better. So Christmas, luckily Heartstrings, which is I kind of consider like my flagship. It's kind of like my major story, which of course I love them all, but
Right.
it sort of I had a lot already written on it or outlined and written. So it was easier to go ahead and do. So the Christmas one I kind of put on hiatus, and then I'm going to pick it up and make sure it's out there prior to Christmas this year, the holidays. And you don't have to be into Christmas really. It just happens to take place at Christmas and has a few so some Christmas scenes, but it's not necessarily about Christmas, but specifically, but and then more recently, maybe like after the first of the year sometime, I decided to put up A Guy Like You. And this is very traditional romance. This is a return to hometown, a redemption story for Miles Wolf, who is a bad boy. And it takes place in the fictional Wolf Ridge, Illinois. And I do want to make it clear that these are not shifter books, even though their last name is Wolf. The reason I named them this is my grandparents' farm in Southern Illinois. The area where the farm was called Wolf Ridge. And I just kind of wanted to make a little bit of, a way to honor my grandparents. Now, the story has nothing to do with them, nothing to do with anything in their town or their family or anything, but I just wanted to honor them a little bit. I try to do that in all my stories in some way. I bring something in from my personal life or from, even if people don't know it. And so that's why it's called Wolf. But I started the story of Miles, and he is a struggling musician in Nashville, and his brother basically tells him,
not a shifter.
You need to come home. He is not a shifter.
Not
His
a shifter.
Not a shifter. Not a shifter.
Name is Wolf.
His last name is Wolf.
I just don't understand. He's not a shifter.
He's not a shifter. I don't write shifters. So I'm trying to tell people it's because my grandparents, and then so their last name is Wolf.
No, I'm just giving you crap. I'm
family.
Just giving you crap.
Well, what's funny though is some of my friends are like, everybody's gonna think this is a shifter book. Everybody. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to put the disclaimer out there because I want to name it that way because of my grandparents. So anyway, it's a cute story. It's cute, and it's beginning of a whole series of him and his brothers and his cousins, and there's going to be a bunch of those coming later.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Bunch of those wolves that aren't shifter.
I can't tell you how many. Oh my God, I see so many shifter books out there. It's just incredible.
I know, and they do so well, and I really am impressed with the people that can write that. I really don't write that. I mean, this time travel is about as paranormal as I get, because I happen to love time travel, and I'm even nervous about it. So I write very much in the real world.
Right.
Now,
right. Okay. So which one is the time travel trope?
So that one is the joy of Christmas. So Joy in 1970 takes off for Nashville to become the next Loretta Lynn.
Oh, I see.
And she arrives in present day Nashville.
What?
So yeah.
Where Loretta's like 90 years old.
Well, she time travels, so she's still her. I mean, it's
well, that's what I'm saying. But Loretta would be
right, but in 1970, that's who she thought she was going to be. Right. So, when she gets there, she first thinks, "Wow, Nashville looks different than it does on TV." But I live in the hills of Kentucky, so maybe I just haven't seen anything recent. And when she starts to have a conversation with somebody, and she talks about Loretta and Patsy Cline, which are even today icons, but they were alive when she lived. She barely knows she doesn't know who Carrie Underwood is or any of these current people, and it's kind of funny because they say something about Dolly Parton, and she says, "Is she that person on the Porter Wagner show?" And so she hardly knows. And it's funny because I'm not even a huge country music fan myself, but I know a lot about it because where I live, and a lot of people are fans. I'm more of a rocker girl, but which is Heartstrings has to do with rock stars, but I do love music. So anyway, so it's kind of cute. The time travel is hard to write because you're already suspending belief, but it's also kind of fun because you can like play with things.
Yes, you can play with history.
You sure can.
That's what's fun. That's what's fun.
Mm-hmm.
I write one that's in an alternate 1845, and it's so much fun to go and connect the little dots, of history to your story. It's
absolutely
a trip, man. So
absolutely,
I know that fun. That fun. So we've got Heartstrings, Deer Creek, A Guy Like You, and The Joy of Christmas. I believe we've got them all, don't we?
I think so.
Well, and we will also have links to all of Lori Beth's stories in the description of this video. So, I see a cattail.
Yes, that's Bronson.
Hello, Bronson.
Going on.
I was showing you my pen a second ago. Here's
yes,
my pen, my little
very
doctor.
cute. Yes,
idiot doctor. Yeah, sorry.
That's okay.
Had to show you that.
Absolutely.
So now then we will have a way for everybody to get to these wonderful romance stories. Now, would you say that that the kind of romance you write is the kind of romance that people who would like Harlequin romance, if it were the, Harlequin romance, sweet romance, closed door?
Not closed door.
Ooh.
I do not write. Well, here's what I write. I write whatever the characters feel like at the time, which is probably not the best answer for people trying to look at in that little genre. Mine do go steamy, and they go pretty steamy. It's not erotica, but in fact, I don't think any of the stories that are even up right now, and Heartstrings is up to, I think, 102 or 103 episodes. There have been scenes, but none of them have been extremely graphic yet. But there will be some things that are. So no, mine are a little
modern romance.
They can be, they are. And I try not to write anything gratuitous. I mean, if it's there for a reason. And sometimes it will be a closed door. Sometimes it will be a fade to black. It just kind of depends on what the story is calling for right then and right there.
I like that answer. I like that.
And my characters are flawed. Some of my characters swear.
No.
Some don't. So I even in Deer Creek, I even have I have like a minister and their family is part of it. It is not a Christian book. It is not. But it is a small town in Indiana, and those are the types of people that make up small towns in Indiana. And I'm very respectful to that, so I try to write lots of different kinds of people and, in depth, really. And so that's there's Bronson again. So that's kind of what you get. What I like to say, especially for Heartstrings, but really all of them, but for Heartstrings, I think people, and I'm going to TV here because I think that so many people are familiar with this, but, and I'm not trying to compare myself with these wonderful, seasoned writers who are very successful. But, if you liked the TV show Parenthood, if you like This Is Us, if you like shows that have lots of different, not just romances, but brothers and sisters connecting, friendships, parent, child, best friends. And sometimes there's angst in that. Sometimes there's conflict. Sometimes there's fighting, and those kinds of things will happen. And one of my favorite book series is a Nora Roberts series, Her Chesapeake Bay. And if anybody knows that one, it's about a found family. It's about a couple that adopt three brothers who are, they're foster, really, they're older when they take them in, they're in high school, actually. Three really, really troubled brothers. And then the books start out where these adult brothers come together and their father dies, and they have this lingering 12-year-old that he's just taken in. And but the whole thing, there are romances in each book, and they're so fun. But it's also very much about family and very much about connections, and
very
that's what
real, it sounds like.
Real. And that's what I love to write. I love to write real life, but make it, you want to keep writing because you want to see what's going to happen and you want to see what's going on in this story. For instance, in Heartstrings, it is a romance, or there are romances in it. With episodic stories, episodic fiction, it's a little bit hard to pigeonhole some of it, because in traditional romances, you're going to have separate books and they're all going to have one plot line and one couple, then you're going to keep moving on. In this one, I mentioned soap operas, but it's a little bit like who somebody is dating or with right now may not be the love of their life. Heartstrings starts when Mallory, who is the main character, she's 14 years old. She's up, I think she's 16 in the story now, and she's going to be in her 30s when the story ends. So she's going to have a lot of stuff go on with her. She's already had, her mom passed away. She didn't know her dad was a rock star. And so she's thrown into this whole life that she didn't know about.
Wow.
And so we're going to follow her and all the things that happen. So, she's not necessarily going to end up with who she's with right now in the story. I know I have some readers out there that are watching this. So I said not necessarily. So we'll have to wait and see. But she's definitely going to have lots of more ups and downs. But I have, her dad has had a romance already in the story, and, this aging rock star that's approaching 40, which is kind of funny because
right.
The older I get, approaching 40 is not old. Is not aging, but so we also find the rock stars, I kind of write them as real people too, but I mean you see their money and you see their excesses, but you also see that deep down they're real people, and that's a little bit of celebrity culture, but they're in Nashville, so it's not quite as bad as maybe be in other places, but
right.
I feel like I'm starting to ramble, and of course this is going to be in the video, but that's kind of how I approach, that's kind of how Heartstrings, it has the different romances. Some are going to be steamy. You started out asking who would like this. That's kind of what I think. I mean, if you like the ups and downs, if you like to cry, you're going to cry. If you're the type of person to cry, some people don't ever, but if I think you're gonna cry sometime in my story. You're definitely gonna laugh, and you're gonna feel suspenseful at times. You're not gonna know what's coming next.
Yeah, I think maybe you should just say this is kind of like a Danielle Steele or a Nora Roberts.
It kind of is, and yeah, Danielle Steele, I read a lot when I was younger, and maybe
didn't we all? Hey,
maybe, and maybe all those 80s nighttime soaps I watched.
It might be, because I mean, I'm right there with you. I'm dying.
I know. I mean, Knots Landing was my favorite. I love the Knots Landing, and so just all that stuff that would always happen, and that's what I'm writing, and it's. And I write little short.
Get on the phone with my sister, and there's always some new drama that is going on. They're back there with the family, and I'm like,
I know, and that's exactly
what watching a show, man. When does it stop?
Well, they say that real life is stranger than fiction, but this is fiction we're talking about. But yeah, you're right. I mean, absolutely, and that's what with most people in their families, there are these things that are going on, and
it never seems to frickin' stop.
No, it doesn't. It
never seems to let up. It never seems to stop. This is with all my friends. So this is great that you're writing.
I'm, on the other
You're
side
all right.
of middle age here. I'm, towards it, and I'm like, I've known a lot of people, I've seen a lot of things, and we're gonna write this stuff. Not that it's based on anyone, but
No, my God, no, we don't need to say that every second, but truthfully, where do we get our ideas? We do make composites in our heads, of this person's trait or that person's trait. And that's
sure,
what makes our people live and breathe. It's what breathes life into a story
absolutely.
and
I
makes it
have
relatable. So,
I have a work that I don't have out here yet, but I will
ooh, let's hear
eventually.
about it.
That is set in the early 80s. And it
Ooh.
is a young adult, and it is high school stuff. And it is basically me and my friends. Again, not really, but kind of, if that makes sense. I kind of joke with people. I said, I grew up in rural Southern Indiana. I grew up in a John Mellencamp song, literally. He is from here. So, he went to a college for a couple of years where the town I grew up in. So,
Wow.
the cornfields and the tasty freeze and all that stuff,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
little pink houses, that's where I grew up. And I've told my friends from high school, I've said, you guys, you're not gonna, I hope that they don't really recognize themselves, because I hope my characters are their own people, and I try really hard to make my characters pretty three-dimensional.
Yes.
But I said, you might recognize some of the things that happen a little bit with a twist. So I've been working on that one for a while. It's just kind of back burner, but it's fun to write.
So what are we calling this one? Chili dogs outside the tasty freeze?
We could. This is what's funny is I change my mind all the time. I am horrible with titles.
Oh, really?
Some authors have a title first. I usually write, and I usually name my title like Miles or Mallory. I name it by the person. I'm terrible.
I know what I wanted to ask you.
Yes.
You write in the first person, the third person? What do you write in?
Oh, well, I write mostly third person.
Yeah, that's how you can get those epic.
Yeah, these are all actually third person.
Yeah.
The young adult one I'm going to try first. It's hard switching to first when you've been writing third person your whole life.
Oh yeah.
It's very difficult.
You're in my same boat, because
and what I find difficult is I write, even when I try first person, I switch in and out of tense all the time. It's like I'm in past tense, and then I'm in present tense, and then I'm like, what am I doing? I don't do that in third person. Third person is past, and it's easier. But in first person, I'm like, okay, wait a minute, which tense am I in? And then, so I know that if first person is really kind of popular now, and I think it started maybe in YA, but I think it's sort of moved into some of the other genres.
Kid, it's way into the romance genre. It's almost all people are reading is this first person stuff.
It's hard. It's hard. And I hope that there are still readers out there that want some third person. Maybe. Well, I mean, I have a few readers. I know that.
Yeah. All my stuff is third person except one.
Yeah. That's what I'm going to dabble with first person with some of my stuff, going forward. But most of these had been writing for a long time. So, but I also think that I still see books that are out there being sold that are like the Nora Roberts or Kristen Hanna, I think writes. She's not just romance, but she's very popular. She's one of my favorite authors. And she writes third person. So I think, people, I really, really strongly think that if you have the right characters and the right story for the right reader, your stuff's not going to be for everybody, and that's fine. But I think if it's for the right reader, it's okay. I answered that question. I belong to a big group of readers on Facebook, like 100,000 people or whatever. And somebody asked what you prefer. And as a reader, my answer was, I want the story to be so good, I don't notice the tense.
Right.
Or not tense. I don't notice the POV.
Right.
I want to be so drawn into it and so drawn to those characters that I have to stop and think, oh, I am reading a first person. Oh, I am reading a third person. Where it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
I don't think the POV should take you out of the story one way or the other.
No.
And so I think if it's good enough, and I don't mean that as, oh, the best written literary story ever. I just mean what's good enough for you as a reader. And I want, that's kind of how I am as a reader. If I won't really put a book back on the shelf for POV, I want to connect, and I want to connect to the characters. I'm a character driven writer, and I'm kind of that way with reading too.
Right. So speaking of reading,
Yes.
do you read any Vellas?
I do read some Vellas. I'm horrible at remembering everything that I read. Even, I really am. I'll read a book, then I'll read the next one, then I'll think, what did I read last week? One round that I'm reading right now is Accidental Quarantine, and that's by Meg Fitz.
Okay, I know it.
Yes, and what's interesting is I started that one. I think I just saw a promo of it, or a post about it, and it's not necessarily my normal kind of story that I would read, but it kind of intrigued me, and so I'm not finished with it yet, so I don't know how it's going to end, and I think I'm not even really caught up with it, but I've read like maybe half of what's out there of it. Yeah. And I'm enjoying it, and it's kind of fun. I think she had written it about 15 years ago or something, and it's kind of interesting, the technology, how some of the things have changed, but that doesn't bother me because I've lived through all of it, so right. It's fine. And I don't know that much about the technology anyway, so I'm really enjoying that one. I just started Rumored by Kristen Lee, and I actually started it a couple weeks ago. I need to get back to it, but that's one I'm kind of anxious to dive into as well.
All right. Well, what we do on Helavella is I put these shout outs at the end of all of the information in your video description, and then of course shout it out on Facebook, Helavella. And speaking of that, what do you think of the social media community out there for Vella?
I think it's amazing. I think it can be overwhelming maybe, but I'm probably in 10 or 15 different groups. My major social media is Facebook.
Right.
I do have a TikTok, which I'm horrible at. And I've got maybe like 8 videos or 6 videos out there. I'm just not good at it, but I have a few, and I have a few people that have seen them, and that's fine. I'm on Instagram, but it's kind of just connected. I have Twitter, but I don't ever really get on it. But so I belong to a bunch of these groups, and I love that for the most part, the authors are supportive of each other.
Yes.
I think, I believe that thing, and what is it? The rising tide, lifts everybody. I think
all boats.
All boats. That's it. All boats. I'm landlocked, so I don't get those nautical metaphors. but I believe that. I really do.
Yes.
And I think it's great. I think that, everybody, we have people that are just willing to help each other, because I really think that, the more we get ourselves out there, the better, as we keep with our quality of writing and our stories, it's going to help us all.
It's an amazing well of talent.
Yes,
absolutely.
Well, people that are so creative and coming up with so many different worlds and ideas, and it's, I'm pretty humbled. I'm pretty in awe of a lot of it. I'm like, wow, why am I here? but then they'll say something, and I think, oh, that sounds like me, and maybe it's okay that I'm here.
Yeah, and then they'll be like, somebody will go, hey, do you do accountability sessions? And I'm like, no, I've never committed a crime that serious.
Oh, You're right. I do belong to a little accountability, little Facebook, little message thing, but I don't think that's really what we are. We kind of just talk about stuff sometimes. But I don't know, I don't even have, my goals are just write as much as I can when I can. So,
No, I was only bringing that up just to illustrate how it's changed. How
well,
everything's changed and how so many of these young writers are out there, man, they're treating this like they're training for the Olympics, and
yeah.
man, they are out there writing, and they are writing a lot, and they are getting each other to read it and rip each other up and go back and do it again and do it again and do it again. And they're becoming really serious writers out of this
Yeah,
process.
it's great. I wish I had their energy.
Yeah, I don't.
But we can all learn from each other. I mean, I hope that they can learn from me at times, and I can learn from these young. Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Oh,
It's
the
pretty
best of
amazing.
them seem to be very willing to learn from people who have been doing it a
Mhm,
while.
mhm. It's
Yeah,
there. It's really a great community. It really is.
it is. It's very cool.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
so then that brings me to the next question that I asked, which
Mhm.
is, if you had all the power of whomever is in charge of Amazon now that Jeff Bezos has stepped down, if you had all that power and you could do anything in the world to make Vela better, what would you do, if anything?
Wow, that is such a good question. And it's almost overwhelming because there's probably a lot. I mean, obviously, maybe not obviously, but I do wish more people knew what Vela was. I wish that it was better advertised, better accessible, easier. I wish it was exactly the same on all reading platforms. Like I think I'm not even sure all Kindles can get it yet. I'm not I'm not sure, but that's what I've read recently. So there are some versions of Kindle that still don't have it.
I'll say
So I,
this. I'll say this. I was at an event yesterday and a
mhm,
dude pulled out his Kindle, but it looked like one of those black and white ones.
mhm.
And he had asked me what I do, and I was telling him about Vela. I did not even bother to try on that
And
black and white
that's
Kindle because I thought, I'm not gonna show the guy how
that is
hard
so
this is
tough.
to
I
get
mean, I
into.
personally have an older Kindle Fire and I have Kindle app on my phone, and I can do it on both of those.
Ah,
Um, and of course, I wish it was worldwide. I mean, I wish I have friends in England that want to read my
right.
my stories. But as far as the advertising and just kind of letting people know what serials are, it's not. I mean, some of them, yes, they are books that we've just kind of shortened, but some of them are not shortened, but divided. But some of the, serialization, I think at its heart is a little bit of a different type of storytelling.
Yeah, it is.
And I wish more people would know that, because I've even had friends that says, just tell me when you're finished, I'll read, and put it in a book or something. And I said, well, that's fine. If they're going to read my stuff anytime, I'm thankful for that. But I'm like, but you watch television, even if you binge, you watch different seasons and you watch. So this is kind of like what it is. It's episodic. And I wish more people would kind of understand what it is, and understand that the coin system or tokens, it's really not that expensive if you do the math, compared to what you would buy in a book, especially a story like mine. Heartstrings will probably go for a couple years. You're not going to spend very much. And I write little short potato chip chapters, or potato chip episodes, I call them. So, you're going to be able to read a lot, with a lot, you're going to get a lot of bang for your buck, I think.
Right.
So I wish it was just the advertising, the marketing, and the expansion is really what I would wish for, what I would do.
Advertising, marketing, and expansion. I like
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
So advertising and marketing, however, are the same thing.
Yeah, they pretty much kind of are.
So
You market, then you advertise. I guess you advertise what it kind of is, but
whatever, we don't care. Just get
we
it
don't
out there,
care.
make people understand what it is. And yeah, make people understand what it is. Get more of a pool for us to fish from. Put more
Mhm.
fish in the pond, baby. Put more fish in the
Right,
pond.
right, right. absolutely. And you know, I know that some authors don't agree with me, but I wish a few more bigger names would go into Bella. And I know there are some that are out there, but I
Woo!
think
That's a heated debate right
it is a
there.
very heated debate. And I don't even know if I'm right. So I could be wrong. It's not that I don't want it saturated with popular authors.
Yeah, I
Don't get me
mean, you
wrong.
know, on the downside, you don't want them to suck all the available oxygen out of the room, but you know,
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But boy, I wish, or maybe even a really popular author don't put their story, maybe they don't put their story out there, but maybe they say, hey, I'm reading on Vala right now. You know, it is controversial. And I don't know if I'm right. I wish more people would have their eyes on it, but not just their eyes on it. I want them to understand it.
I gotta say that, you know, I know a fairly popular romance author out there, and she's reticent to put her stuff out here under her big name that she's built over a decade, because she's got, you know, a fan base who she's not certain whether they're going to feel betrayed, you know, that she's out here writing her next work on this episodic serial platform when she has been traditionally a Kindle Unlimited author, where they could go and get her next stuff. And I mean, there's an army of these people. She is popular.
Very fair.
And, you know, and so I don't know, if I were an author, if I had any popularity like that, I might come out on Kindle under a different name.
Yeah.
And sit out here for a while, see how she does, and let it ripen a bit, couple years or something, and then maybe rip off the post note and reveal my real name.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the thing about Vala, is it's so new. And of course, we know that there has been serialized fiction apps in other parts, especially in other parts of the world. But I think for mainstream, and for the United States, I think Vala is very new, and it's, you know, and so even with the stories you put out there, even the marketing and for the seasoned authors, and there's no precedent for this, and it's kind of hard to know what to do. And I think that that's fair.
Makes it exciting. That makes it exciting, Lord Beth.
It does.
I'm very excited. We're pioneers.
Yes, absolutely.
How often do you get to be pioneers?
Well, you don't get to be pioneers very much. As someone who you know, read and watched Little House on the Prairie when I was a little girl, you know, I always kind of wanted to be a pioneer, but I knew that I wouldn't have, because I'm not an outdoor person. So this is the way that I'm able to be and
right. You're you're up here at the head of that. We're in the vanguard, baby.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, okay, we've done our shout outs. We've done our improvement to Vala. We're coming to the end of our talk here and our visit this morning. So the last question that I'd like to ask you is, since I put the links to your stories in the description for this video, there'll be people who are watching the video who will click on them and be looking at your work for the first time. Anything you'd like to say to them?
Well, the very first thing I'd like to say is thank you for clicking my link. Thank you for having enough interest at all just to click and to take a look. Because I really do appreciate every single reader. I feel like I'm building my fan base one reader at a time, but I hope that you enjoy my stories. My stories, I hope, will touch you in the heart. I hope that they'll also entertain you and kind of make you at the edge of your seat from time to time. Please reach out on social media. I love to talk to my readers. Some of them do. I do have a presence. I have both a author page and a regular page, and I know we have the links for those. And I will definitely enjoy if you want to chat about the story, any of my stories, I will definitely do that. But I'm glad that you're around. I'm glad that you are interested, and I really appreciate you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Lori Beth, for taking time today to visit with me here on Hella Vella.
You are welcome. And thank you so much for having me. I very much appreciate this.
You bet, you bet. And so this is Azriel Lawless, and that's it for me and Lori Beth today. Hope you guys have a wonderful day. Thank you for watching, and always come back because there's a lot more on Helavella. So thank you again. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.